Hello there. Welcome to Comic Books Transformed. I am one of your hosts, Anchorpete, and I'm with my good friend Brian. Brian, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good, Pete.
Yeah. For Comic Books Transformed, if you are new to the channel, we basically talk about all the various different adaptations of the comic books that we love, whether being adapted into films, TV shows, even video games, and more. So for tonight, we're talking about the thing that everyone else is talking about, The Suicide Squad. We're going to talk about how we felt about the movie. We're going to talk about who we expected to die and did that match up. We're also going to rank the DCEU movies that have been coming out since Man of Steel. So, Brian, right off the bat, and everyone should know, you can spoil the shit out of this. How, maybe I should ask the question the right way. It's like, oh man, I didn't fucking stick the landing there.
So funny, I have to interject this funny story. So back in college, I interviewed a band called Soilwork, metal band from Sweden, and I was just so nervous.
Yeah,
and there was some issues with getting them there and recording because it was on a Sunday and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
We literally picked the band up from the venue and brought them back to the radio station to record. Anyway, I start the interview off with what I thought was a question, and I realized it was just a statement. You're like, yeah. I'm like,
oh. That's the worst.
Yeah.
The worst is when you are live and you're talking to a stranger.
Yep.
Like, luckily, I've known you for like 20-something years, so it's all good. But, oh, man, live with a stranger, it is so awkward.
Yeah.
And just as a little side note, too, since we're pulling back the curtain here, today has just been like a crazy day in my personal life. Like, I've just been like so scatterbrained. My wife is out of town, and like, I got to give her credit for the way that she handles our household and our kids. Because, like, before she comes home, I'm going to have to do one of those like adventures in babysitting or don't tell mom the babysitter's dead, kind of like restore the house montages. You know?
I am much of the same boat, my friend. I cannot. I only have one kid, but I have a dog, and I can't handle them both at the same time sometimes.
Oh man, yeah. Well, dude, your dog is pretty tough, man, to deal with. You know, from when I met him, he should be on this Suicide Squad.
Yes, I think he might fare pretty well.
So these people are like, we don't give a shit. Let's just talk about the freaking movie. So let's do that.
Yeah, it's all zero of the people.
Oh yeah, all 0 people watching and our new subscriber. Brian, I was going to ask you, how did you feel about this movie? How do you feel about this movie in general?
Okay, so I was super hyped about this movie.
Yes.
I've been reading a lot. I was just excited about it. I thought maybe DC would finally have like a really good standout film. And I think it's a really good movie. But I don't think any movie could have withstood the hype that I had for it internally. So
Yes.
For me, I think maybe the first 20 or 30 minutes, I was like really giddy and really excited and really happy. But I think it kind of plateaued for me. And I mean, ultimately, it's a much more complete film, but it's still kind of similar to the first one. In a lot of ways. It's I mean, really, it's just a different setting and characters, and not horribly weird cuts and and whatever you call that.
That is okay. That's an interesting point. I almost want to unpack that because you are right. There are many similarities between this and the David Ayer Suicide Squad movie, which I don't even think that what was released would even count as his movie. It was like so edited and
yeah. I feel like we should address that. Like I mean, David Ayer recently just wrote this letter on Twitter or on the social media. I read it on Twitter,
right?
About how like he's kind of tired of being shit on for the movie because he really feels that the studio butchered it, and you can tell like there just seems to be a whole pieces missing out of that movie. Oh, and yeah. I would absolutely be curious to see his version of it. I think it probably would be a lot better.
Yeah. For anyone watching, if you guys are interested, I think you should check out that letter that Brian just mentioned because it's like straight from the heart. He talks about his personal life a lot, and it just makes it sound like what he made was like his vision and was inspired by his life. And they just like hacked it to pieces, like a Frankenstein monster.
Yeah,
you know, the
they
studio.
hacked it to pieces and added a bunch of like popular songs to it, which he said like were not in his cut at all. And you know, it was basically a trailer that performed really well that caused that kind of change. So
Yeah,
it really that I mean, it does a disservice to everybody in that movie. I mean, there are some. I mean, obviously Margot Robbie was great in that movie. I mean, does a great job as Harley. I mean, even Will Smith was really good, but something is wrong with that movie, you know, as is.
yeah. Something's rotten in Midway City. So, you know, like with this movie, it's the complete inverse because now this is someone's vision. It's James Gunn's vision. They certainly there was never any kind of articles, there was never any kind of like tweets or anything like that talking about how like the studios really interfered with this version of it. And any kind of review you see, everyone's like, this is from the mind of James Gunn, and this movie's so James Gunn. And I think that for me personally, I love Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. And Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is my number one ranked Marvel movie, and I get a lot of shit for that. I don't necessarily think that means that like James Gunn is this like auteur that can like do no wrong. I think that Guardians 1 and Guardians 2 are flawed in certain ways, and Guardians 2 actually is very flawed in certain ways. And I think that this movie is flawed in certain ways. I like this movie a lot. When we go into our rankings, it's number 3 for me in this whole series of 10 movies. But I also have like serious problems with this movie. Like the bar is so low for DC movies that it's pretty bad that this is number 3.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the plateau. Let's talk about the flaws. I want to know some of the problems that you have with this movie.
So I'm going to say that right after the scene where they end up with the Suicide Squad, where Bloodsport's team ends up killing all the rebels, that was the point after that. I'm like, okay, this is all fantastic, and I'm really enjoying it. But from there, it plateaued.
Yeah.
I thought the kind of little love story with Harley was a little odd, but I understand how why they needed to separate her, from the team temporarily. This may be controversial, but I thought King Shark was kind of like misused. I mean, like he's like a violent Groot, and it's just like, I mean, more violent, I guess. And that I don't know if that's the right way to do it. What else is there? I can't think of anything. How about what did you think about it?
Okay. So King Shark is misused. That's what you say, right?
Yeah.
To me, it's like, what are they ultimately trying to do with this movie? Because it seems like James Gunn gets let go from Marvel because of controversial tweets he wrote a long time ago. And DC's like, hey, we'll take you. And I think that maybe he felt like the Suicide Squad was handled poorly, and he could he could sort of repair the damage, and he would make it faithful to John Ostrander's run, of Suicide Squad, which is sort of like the seminal Suicide Squad run.
Yeah.
But it feels like a lot of individual story pieces that don't necessarily cohesively fit together. At one point in the third act, when everything kind of starts to get really chaotic, I'm kind of impressed with how chaotic and crazy it gets when they're in the Jotunheim facility.
Yeah.
But the movie kind of feels disjointed. I think, didn't like Danny say something like this in the little thread that you guys had, where he was saying like it didn't feel like it all matched up? Did he say that, or did you say that?
I don't know if that was him that said that, but I mean, I don't necessarily think it just doesn't mesh up. It's just I don't know. Is there a lack of motivation? I felt there was a lack of motivation from the mission completion to the fight against Starro. I also think Starro was a weird choice to use here too. I mean, I think one of my biggest issues with the original movie is that the villain is the Enchantress, and it's this magical villain, and you're essentially sending a bunch of guys with guns to fight this big magical thing. And now you instead You're sending a bunch of guys with guns to fight a big, giant, telepathic starfish. You know?
Yeah.
And it just doesn't seem like the right kind of villain for the movie. I don't think it was disjointed. There was the film had, in addition to trying to honor the 80s run of Suicide Squad, I mean, it had a lot of like Western in it, I think, too. Like Dirty Dozen, things like that. I can see that influence on it. I'm not so disjointed is the right word, but
okay.
Yeah, it's just something. I don't want to say it was too long. I don't want to say there was anything in there that was unnecessary, but I guess it just didn't live up to the hype.
Yeah, I felt that the whole time watching it. Actually, I'm like, oh, this, like with Guardians of the Galaxy 1, there's that scene when Peter Quill goes into the ruins in the very beginning and he starts playing. Is it Hooked on a Feeling or no? Yeah, that is. Yeah, okay, so he's playing that and he's dancing, and I was just like, oh, I am so on board for this. Like, give me this. This is perfect. Yeah. And then in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, it did kind of feel like it dragged too, but then there's that one sequence, I just always think, this always makes it number one on my list, which is when they go to Ego's planet, and Drax is there, and they do that song, My Sweet Lord, by George Harrison. Right? Yep. And I'm like, oh my God, this is better than anything I've seen in any Marvel movie, for me.
Yeah.
So there are moments that are kind of like approaching that level in this movie, but it just feels like, I mean, maybe it's because there's too many characters. Like with Guardians, at least you just kind of have Peter as the main guy, but yet you still feel for like Rocket and Groot. They're kind of like a unit together. And then Gamora's got her own thing, and Drax has their own thing. So it's essentially 4 threads, right? But
yeah, but I mean, did they really give that much to do with for characters outside of Harley, Bloodsport, and then like Rick Flag and Peacemaker? Polka Dot Men didn't have very much. Maybe Ratcatcher had some. Yeah. And then obviously you have Amanda Waller, on the outside. But I mean, King Shark was like a running gag, really. He didn't. Oh yeah. Need to do. So it's just. Maybe it just wasn't that interesting and exciting as I wanted it to be. Yeah. Because here's the thing, right? You watch the trailers, and I think maybe I've watched like 3 or 4 of the trailers or footage. Yeah. You get an idea. It's like, okay, they are going to kill off a whole bunch of people probably pretty quickly, and they do. And then you sort of think, okay, well, then these guys will last long, and maybe there'll be a sort of a death or two where you really feel it. We're going to talk later about our lists of characters and like who we thought was going to die and who we thought was going to live. And yeah. I pretty much predicted every single person that was going to die and who was going to live, with one exception. And they like die before the credits. And that was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. But then in the post credits, they're alive. And so I pretty much like predicted what was going to happen. And that's our lists were very similar. I think you beat me by 1. Yeah. So, like, why don't we kind of go into that? Because I feel like that is kind of what we're both getting at. Yeah. The fact that, like, you have, like, 17 characters that were on this list that we dealt with, and we were able to be like, oh, yeah, this one's going to die, this one's going to live. It's basically because of the marketing and then the hype, and you get so excited. Now, I feel like with Guardians of the Galaxy, both volumes, I pretty much knew what was going to happen in both of them, but there still were sequences where I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. This is more fun than what I was expecting, Mm-hmm. So let's talk about our lists and how we essentially knew people were going to live and people were going to die. So who did you get wrong on your list? So I think one of the problems I had with making the list is that when I was looking at the list of characters in the movie, I didn't realize that Ratcatcher and I didn't know Soul Sorry was even in the movie. I thought Alice Braga was playing Ratcatcher. Yeah. So I thought that was the same person. So I was really thrown off by that. But I think where I got wrong, the one I got wrong that you didn't get was the Thinker.
Right.
So I thought he was gonna kind of like join the mid movie, that was correct. But
Right.
I didn't think that he was gonna die.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like once he showed up and you could see that he was like torturing Starro. I was like, oh yeah, he's definitely he's toast.
I knew I was wrong. Yeah, very very early in when he came in, I knew I was wrong.
But like with the whole side team that they have this sort of montage before they go to the island, you know, once you see who's on that side team and then you see that, oh, yeah, okay, Harley and Rick Flag are with them and then they're going to go to the island. You're like, okay, well, I already know that Harley and Rick Flag show up later, so they must like get captured. Yeah. And then I could even kind of predict it. I was like, when people pulled guns on Rick Flag, I was like, oh, those are going to be like the insurgents against the regime that took over.
See, I actually did not think that. I didn't pick up on that, but good call, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't say these things to kind of like brag. It's just that like when you see so many movies over and over again, when you read so many comics, it's like, you know, you can kind of predict these things. And like, it's okay if they kind of go along with what you're expecting. But
well, here's another thing about expectations. You mentioned you watched like 3 or 4 different trailers for this. Do you think they showed like a way too much of this movie in the trailers?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I think that
why did they show any Starro scenes at all?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What is the benefit there?
Yeah. And okay, I think this is kind of like what we're trying to get at right here, which is that I think the general premise of this movie, the selling point of this movie was you have all these characters, who's going to live and who's going to die. It's like a war movie, but it's almost like a horror movie too.
Yes.
Even though there really aren't any kind of horror tropes. Oh, actually, there are some horror tropes with Starro in this. But like, it's definitely like
pretty creepy.
Yeah. That was actually well done. Like you were kind of saying, like, well, why did they use Starro? I also do think it's a weird choice, but I do think that if there was ever going to be a Starro in a live action movie, they did it well. And
no, they used him very well, and I think even James Gunn picked him because, like, he said, like, this is silly and weird, but it's fucking terrifying, and that's a perfect way of describing it.
Yes, that was one of the best scenes in the movie, and you know, maybe that could be the next thing that we talk about is like, what did we like about it? What was our thing that like really got us? When he breaks out of the tower and he just shoots out his mini Starros, and it gets real quiet. And it just kind of, they fall in people's face. That whole sequence was perfect.
Yeah.
That was great.
Especially knowing that essentially you die. Like you're not, like you can't come back at it. In the comics, you can.
Right.
Here you cannot. So that made it even more terrifying. Like once that gets on you, that's it.
That's it. You're dead. Yeah. So, well, okay. Before we talk about what we liked, was there anything about like the deaths that you didn't expect or you were disappointed with?
No, I mean, I think we both pretty obviously thought that second team was going to be, or I guess first team. I kept calling them the second team before we watched the movie, but they were really the first team.
Yeah.
We knew they were all going to die, and I wasn't sure if there was going to be the very first opening scene, or it was going to be like a rescue attempt later on. They were all just going to die, like in a comical way. I think that might have even worked better, honestly.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, after that, not many characters die after that.
Right.
The main characters. And I think maybe we would have benefited from some more stakes, I guess.
Yeah.
To go along during the movie rather than just, start throwing them all out the window in the beginning.
Very good point. Very good point. I listened to this podcast where they interviewed James Gunn about this movie, and he said that, or the person that interviewed him had seen the movie, and they were talking about how they wanted to give the characters dignity. And I know that first team is kind of a joke, and a few of them die in a kind of a comical way, but yet, like, there kind of was some dignity with their deaths. Like, Captain Boomerang gets blown up, but when they have that little montage of all the corpses, like he's holding up the boomerang, I like that.
You got a couple kills in too with the boomerangs too, so.
Oh yeah. Once like the boomerang like sliced open the guy's head and like his brain fell out, I was like, okay, we're into something hardcore here.
Yeah.
But like for an example, with Javelin, right? That's like a guy that like you and I don't even know who that is in the DC comics, right? He's so obscure. And they got some kind of guy, I think he's like a YouTube star or something.
Oh no, he's like a German comedian. He's actually Flugelborg. He's pretty funny.
Oh, okay. Well, it's like, okay, he's clearly going to get killed right away. But that sequence when Harley's looking at him and he's talking to her, he doesn't sound like an idiot. The joke is there because she smacks his face after he dies. But it's like really well done. The music and like their emotions, it's really well done when he dies.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny when the Weasel. See, the thing with the Weasel that's so good, Joel Kinnaman, like, he's got some humor beats in him too, because he's like, it's not a werewolf, he's a good guy or something like that. I mean, he killed 27 children. Like, that's fucking hilarious.
No, yeah, no. The jokes were firing on all cylinders. Like the violence was firing on all cylinders. Everything was really great in the very beginning, but after that, it's just it climaxed too early.
Oh man, do I hate when that happens? So let's talk about what we like then.
I mean, I think I've already said it. Really, I mean, I think I really liked the first like 20 or 30 minutes of this movie. I thought the performances that everybody gave were really good. I mean, I can't think of anybody in the movie who was like, oh, they weren't that good. Like, it was very well cast, and everyone played their parts very well. Yeah.
To me, what this movie feels like is, I say this in a lot of my videos I make, but when I was a kid, they used to have movies on like Channel 11 or Channel 9 on like a Saturday or Sunday in the afternoon. And they'd be kind of like almost like B movies from like the 80s or 90s. And they had bad special effects, but they were these great kind of movies with like synth scores and stuff. And I feel like so many modern movies kind of try to emulate that because people like us grew up watching those movies. And to me, this movie felt like that. It kind of also reminded me of like Escape from New York. Like, it kind of felt like Idris Elba, Bloodsport, was like Snake Plissken.
Yeah.
That's the kind of vibe I got. And so it had it like all of John Carpenter's stuff, even his sci-fi stuff, still has a tinge of horror to it. And so that's what this had. It felt like a sort of like horror war / action movie with DC superheroes.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where it's really great. I think Idris Elba was fantastic. I just loved his look. Like, so many of the characters, just their looks are fantastic, but like Bloodsport looked really cool.
He did look really cool. I mean, that's a fairly deep cut to that character. I mean, I definitely felt though that it's definitely a Deadshot stand-in.
Oh, 1,000%.
Because Will Smith couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Now, not to say that I don't think probably Idris Elba probably would have did a better job as Deadshot or work better, but really even the story is very similar. Deadshot is shown with his kids or his son, I think. I remember, but this time it's Bloodsport and his daughter, and that's kind of his motivation in the movie. So it was like really the exact same character in a way, with just a different setting,
Yes, it is. They just could switch them out easily. Yes, but I do kind of think that Idris Elba, his character was more compelling for me than Will Smith as Floyd Lawton.
I will definitely agree with that there.
Yeah. You mentioned Margot Robbie before, and the thing is that like people say she's like Hugh Jackman and as Wolverine, or Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, or Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and that's completely accurate. That's her Harley. And it's a great take on the character. We're guys, we can say it's like she's a beautiful woman, but not even like a lusty, like she's just like beautiful to look at. And Harley, when done right, can be this great combination of just like beautiful and then just fucking terrifying, right? And I think that she did that multiple times in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. She kind of, she acquired quite a body count in this movie.
Yes.
And also, I kind of like that this, while you don't need to see the first movie for this, or you don't even need to see Birds of Prey before this. But I kind of felt like there were some elements of the character from both of those movies
I agree.
that I appreciated, and seeing them can sort of enhance this, but it's not required. So it's kind of like honoring them in a way, and I appreciated that.
Yeah. Let's just do a little deep cut that like no one's gonna be interested in, but maybe just me. But like with Image Comics from the 90s, right? You had all these guys that broke away from Marvel to make their own books, and you have like Spawn, and you have Youngblood, and you have Savage Dragon, all these different characters in their own kind of worlds that make sense. That's kind of what I feel like these DC movies are. I feel like they're not really cohesively together, but they still kind of can fit together. And it's really cool whenever you see an Image book that'll have like Spawn and Youngblood and all these characters in it together, even though it kind of doesn't make sense for them to all be there. And I do kind of like this weird world that they've made. They've kind of killed off a few characters, too many that I would like to still be alive in general. But I don't know. I'd like to see them go forward with this universe.
Yeah. I mean, it's still it's a weird thing because there's more and more movies popping up that don't fit in with it,
Right?
And there's Joker, and the Batman will not have anything to do with this. I think there's another one too that I'm forgetting. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it continue. I mean, there's some good elements here, and I mean, I don't think it's possible to reach the status that Marvel has had with the amount of collaboration and all that. But I mean, I'm still excited to see them try.
Yeah, there's some kind of thing that we have in us, maybe as humans, but definitely as like comic book fans, where like when you see two things that aren't normally in the same movie or book or whatever, and then they come together, you're like, oh my god, it's those two together. Yeah.
And I have not gotten fatigued on that yet.
No, yeah. So I mean, I think that if we ever had a movie that had like Margot Robbie and then like Shazam and like maybe what's his face, Jason Momoa as Aquaman, even though like I have problems with all those movies, just to see them all together in one kind of crossover would be real exciting.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I really need to see Harley and a live action Poison Ivy.
Yeah.
I need Gotham City Sirens. I mean, I don't know what happened with that movie, but I think that's what I want to see the most in terms of that character collaboration.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the Batman movie that has Robert Pattinson is supposed to be like its own continuity.
Yeah.
And, I mean, obviously it is, right? Because Ben Affleck, right? But like, I think they're making it like that's Earth 2, and then this is like Earth 1. And maybe they will start to have crises, and they can cross over. But I know that in that Robert Pattinson movie, they're supposed to have like a rogues gallery of Batman villains. Like, it would be cool to just kind of build up the rogues and have Poison Ivy be one of them.
Have they mentioned anything about her in that movie? I mean, I know Penguin's in it. I know Riddler's in it.
Catwoman's
in it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Gotham City Sirens movie was supposed to be, I think was being developed even before Birds of Prey was, but and it was supposed to have Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and Harley. And I think now there's the Batgirl movie.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's going to kind of take that over as well. I'm not really sure.
Is that supposed to be a movie? It's not a show?
I thought it was a movie.
Okay, you're probably right. Yeah.
I could very easily be wrong there.
Well, you know what? We're talking about all these DC movies. Do you want to go into our ranking?
Do it.
Okay, and if anything, we can always come back to our Suicide Squad if we have some more points we can make. But let's go from our least favorite to our favorite.
Sure.
Okay. You want me to just go first, then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So my least favorite is the Suicide Squad, the David Ayer directed one.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it's not really a full movie. And you said before, it's like a chunk of it's been taken out. I feel like the life has been taken out of it, and I just couldn't get on board with it.
I totally agree with that statement. And I mean, I would almost be more interested in. I watched the Snyder cut of Justice League before I watched Justice League, but because I actually watched Suicide Squad, I almost would say I'm more interested in seeing the actual version of that movie than I would have been for Justice League.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah. That's the problem, is that like the studio just interfered and just messed up so many of these movies. And if they just kind of kept them in their original form, I mean, it's weird because Marvel was doing so well with these kind of quirky movies, and I think that's why they, pulled the plug on this. And they were like, "Oh, we can't go too dark." And you and I even kind of would talk and say like these movies are too dark or they don't really capture the characters the right way. But I would almost rather have them not be the right way for the characters, but at least have some kind of vision or just like one solid story versus these hacked up movies. So like my number 2 is it's the prime example of that, which is the Justice League movie, the Joss Whedon directed one.
Yeah.
Number 3 is where you start to have a director's vision, but this is where it's like, I don't like the director's vision, and it's Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. When I say 3, it's third worst. And there's 10 of these, so this is essentially that was number.
Wait, isn't it 11?
What am I missing? Well, how would you know if I'm like? Okay, I'm going to read my list. You tell me if I missed something.
Wait. No, you're right. It's only 10.
Right, because the Snyder Cut doesn't count for this particular list we're making. So that's 8 for me is Dawn of Justice. Then 7 is Wonder Woman 1984, which that's another one where it's got the director's vision, but it's just like too sloppy, and the stuff with the wishing, that bothers me. It has a great beginning, but the rest of it's pretty rough.
Yep.
Aquaman, I actually love James Wan. You guys want to check out my other channel, the Lastercast. We are going to be doing a James Wan-a-thon with his horror movies. I actually really like Aquaman, and Patrick Wilson's one of my favorite actors, but the movie's still pretty goofy in some ways. Shazam is my fifth one on the list. It's fun, but I feel like it has some flaws. Birds of Prey, once again, it's good, but it has flaws. Margot Robbie's fantastic in it. I really like Huntress in it. I like even Ewan McGregor in it. Then you have this movie, which we've talked about. Number 2 is Man of Steel. And I think Man of Steel is the closest to like a full movie, a good movie that tells a story. But what makes it not higher on this list is what they ultimately do with Superman. I don't like the characterization of Superman, but I do like the story. And the beginning of Man of Steel, I think, is like perfect with the Krypton stuff. Last but not least, my number 1 is Wonder Woman, and that might just be based on the trench scene alone. And but I think that Wonder Woman is the most comprehensive story and also captures the essence of the character. So that's me talking a lot. I'm eagerly looking forward to your list.
Okay, so my list starts off very similar to yours. The bottom of the barrel is Suicide Squad, followed by Justice League, followed by Batman v Superman, then Wonder Woman 84.
Oh shit!
From there, it's a little different. So then I have Birds of Prey. Then I actually have Wonder Woman. Now I loved Wonder Woman, but I really just hated the third act. I hated it. I really just was like, this is 2/3 of an amazing movie, and then the last one just completely fell flat. Was like just terrible CG. It's a completely unnecessary fight. Not unnecessary. It was just. It really like took a downturn in the last 20 minutes to me. Okay. From there, I haven't quite finished this movie yet. I have 20 minutes left. I watched Aquaman today.
Okay.
And I couldn't quite finish it, but I have that next. It is goofy, absolutely. I think Jason Momoa and Amber Heard are a little like wooden, but it's such I was really into the goofiness of it, honestly. These giant fucking seahorses and sharks and weird like creatures that would be in like Scott Snyder's The Wake. It's a big. This was the most blockbustery typical action movie I think out of all of these, and I appreciated that.
Yes. Before you go on to the next one, just one little point. I'm sorry for talking. I'm so annoying. But I actually watched Aquaman on an airplane for my second viewing, and my headphones weren't plugged in, so I watched it without the sound, and it improved it tremendously. Like not hearing the dialogue or like them talking, but like Jason Momoa is just physically charismatic as well.
Yeah.
So like if you don't have to hear them talking, I felt like that made the movie way better.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite like Anakin Padme bad, but it's not great.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, yeah, but Patrick Wilson's really good. I mean, it's just, all the water scenes even look kind of weird and goofy, but something about like it's just a great big dumb adventure. Like,
Yes.
I'm really enjoying it.
Nice, man.
After that, I have Shazam.
Okay.
At number 3, and then I have the Suicide Squad at 2, and Man of Steel at number 1.
Whoa!
I'm a huge fan of Man of Steel. I totally see and agree with the character choice at the end, but I still love the movie. I really do.
Yeah. If only he had like a little bit more joy. If there was like him maybe like saving somebody just randomly he saves people, right? But like if we just had like a little bit more going towards
Christopher Reeve.
Yeah. Because I was thinking, to me, maybe the most exciting Superman thing I've ever seen, where it like really feels like the character, is Brandon Routh saving the airplane.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
He's like the best scene in that movie by far.
And the thing is, like, there's amazing Superman stuff, and especially Man of Steel, but not necessarily with Superman. Like the Krypton stuff is really good. But then that part when he like flies through the wing that flies off the ship, and he's just boom like that, and the music kicks in, that's like Superman on steroids. It's just boom, perfect.
So yeah, that's my list.
We're very similar. Just we kind of defer with Wonder Woman, I guess, and maybe Birds of Prey were a little off, but otherwise,
I really like Birds of Prey, and I've only watched it the one time in the theater, and the volume was really low, so I had to struggle to hear some things, and I really should rewatch it again. But I did like the movie. I went out. I came out of the movie happy. I remember that. Like that was really good. But I mean,